Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Whitwam Organics Weekly Nursery and Garden Report. My name is David Whitwam. I'm your host. Thank you so much for joining me. This week, we are going to be talking about what to do, what to plant in your garden in this heat that we have every single spring, summer, and into fall. There's not going to be too much of a nursery and garden report today because that's exactly the same thing that I would be talking about. So today's live broadcast is just basically going to be a large extension of our nursery and garden report. What I want to do today is go through our list of our selected heat-loving greens and things that I have spent the past 10 years selecting and testing crops that do really well here in our spring, summer, and fall seasons, basically when it's hot. That's why I don't call it the summer list, because it begins in spring, goes through summer, and into fall. I mean, technically, when I'm kind of splitting up the year, I do call these the summer crops because they're not really spring crops, they're not fall crops, and they're not the winter crops. So, but on the website, it is under heat-loving greens and things. If you want to go ahead and go to that section in, well, I'll do a brief garden report of some things that I've been working on this week. So in a lot of my gardens right now, we are taking out our strawberry plants. They are, production is greatly diminished. They are producing smaller and smaller berries, less and less berries. Definitely the peak of the season is over. If you would like to leave them in, mosquitoes. If you would like to leave them in and you have space because you're not doing anything with that spot, that's totally fine. This time of year, because I'm trying to get some spring stuff going, get summer stuff going, I usually need the real estate. So one of the things that you can do with them is go ahead and carefully dig them up and plant them in, I like to put them in pots, like hanging baskets work really well. You don't need all of them if you planted a lot of strawberries, but maybe 4 or 5 up to 10 plants, and move them over to a shady location in your yard where you can keep them lightly watered over the summertime. What this is going to do is they're going to put out runners that you'll be able to kind of bud off of and get an early jump on the fall strawberry planting season. They'll still produce a little bit for you over the summer too. So, but basically, if you had them in full sun over the winter, you need to get them out, get them into a shady location. If you don't have room in your garden, pots work really well for the strawberries because you can kind of control the environment, maybe move them around a little bit more if you need to. Most of our winter stuff is our cold season winter stuff is done. I've said this over and over again. I will continue to repeat it because not everybody watches all of these videos, but essentially we break the season up into, like, if you had all your seeds in one spot, you want to create 3 baskets. Each of those 3 baskets has 2 shelves: winter, spring, fall, and summer. The winter stuff is split into 2 sections. Well, they're each split into 2 sections. The winter stuff, the 2 sections for the winter stuff, that is going to be your heat tolerant winter stuff. So that would be like kale and collards, and then the stuff that needs it cool. Your spring, fall, the 2 categories in spring and fall would be short season and long season. And the summer stuff, which is what we're going to talk about today, is the stuff that loves the summer and the stuff that tolerates the summer, that's extremely tolerant of the summer. And that's important to know, like when to plant it and what to expect out of them, and how often to plant them. Those 3 are basically the winter, spring, fall, and summer. Winter's anything that can take a frost. Summer is anything that can be grown over the summer. And your spring, fall stuff is what I refer to as the Goldilocks plants that really can't do either. And they thrive in the weather we're having right now. You know, kind of swinging back and forth from cool to warm. You still probably want to have coffee outside in the morning. You're not questioning all the decisions that got you to the point of moving to Florida. That summer weather, you're considering possibly swimming, and women aren't wearing boots. So that's our spring weather and our fall weather. Basically, it's pleasant outside. So the winter crops that we're pulling out right now are the ones that would have been categorized as the needs it cool. So that's the stuff that's like toast. So your lettuce, that's probably bolting. Spinach is done. A lot of our Chinese cabbage, which really likes it cool. It's getting a little too warm for like beets to really be, grow. We do have a little cold snap coming. So any of these crops that I have in still, that looks like they're struggling, but I might give some of that stuff like another week. But this is probably going to be it for the weather that's cool enough for your cool weather winter crops. The heat tolerant winter crops, that stuff will make it. That would be your kale, collards, some cabbages might still head up really good. Stuff like that. Your winter veggies with the thicker leaves on them. In some gardens, we're actually still planting some of that stuff as starts. But for the most part, our cool season winter stuff is gone. Our spring stuff is, really up and going and rocking and rolling. We're already getting production out of some of our zucchinis and squash. Tomatoes should be somewhere between, I'd say, 8 and 24 inches tall right now if you put them in for spring. If you overwintered them and they're in for the fall, I would recommend treating them like new plants, cutting them back at this point, giving them a fresh burst of, organic matter, fertilizer, whatever it is you use, liquid nutrients, organic fertilizers, compost, because, they're going to want to flush back out again. And if they make it towards summer, your tomatoes, you're going to have a giant bushy mess. So right now, end of February through March is a good time to trim your tomato plants back if you attempted to overwinter them and push them through to spring. If you do that, if that's a regular practice for you, I really, really encourage you to just try. If you've never tried it, put in some tomato plants in the spring right next to them or in the general vicinity. I'd like you to see a nice side-by-side comparison of which ones make it further towards summer. My experience is the ones from the fall should be producing right about now, but they're not going to make it very long with the oncoming heat. Ones that you plant January, February, March in the garden, they seem to go a lot further. Definitely have less nematode issues. So kind of a successive planting of those tomato plants. We're going to talk a little bit more about that when we get into our summer plants, because that's very important to understand for some of the crop selections that we're going to talk about and growing them all summer. I haven't done it yet, but one of the things I want to do on the website is split my entire catalog up into these 3 sections and have those 3 sections split into their 2 sections. It's a lot of work. I'm still working on product descriptions. Once I get all the product descriptions done, then I'll continue to recategorize things just to make it easier to find everything on the website. So if you got a phone or another laptop and you're watching the video and you want to follow along, you go to whitwamorganics.com. Let me see if I can. Oh, the link's in the description. So just copy the link or click on, if you're on Facebook, you should be able to click on the link. If you're on YouTube, you might have to copy it into your browser, and you can follow along with kind of what I'm going to go through. As far as what we're planting out in the nursery, like I said, that's pretty much what we're going to go through today. So this is just going to be a very large nursery report with more detail. Just getting some stuff out of my way. Okay. So we're going to go here to whitwamorganics.com. And basically what you guys can expect today is I'm going to go through this list one at a time. I have some things on the list that are pretty basic. A lot of people know about them. I'll probably blast through those really quick because I want to jump to the outliers that maybe you aren't as familiar with. So I'm here at whitwamorganics.com. I'm going to go to shop if you're not going through the link. And then I'm going to scroll down to heat loving greens and things. Now, what I want you to do is in the upper right, there's a little button that says sort. Sort it alphabetically, A to Z, because we're going to go through alphabetically. It's just easier that way. Okay, so first on the list, we have 96 of these to go through, but I'm going to clump them in their groupings just so we can get through it a lot faster. So first on the list are our 3 amaranths. That's the green leaf, Jamaican callaloo, the red amaranth, and the white leaf amaranth. Now these are all grown for their leaves. Amaranths have been grown forever for their seeds and grains as well. You can use the seeds on these, but they do not produce the massive seed heads that the ones that have been cultivated for their grains will produce for you. These are mainly cultivated for their leaves. And some of the ones that put out the seed pods too, they've got a little bit more of a sharp, bitter flavor. That's really the big difference between them. So the ones that are cultivated for their leaves have better flavor and don't put out as many seeds, and the ones cultivated for their seeds may or may not have decent flavor, but they really crank out those seed pods. This is a really easy to grow crop all summer long. Basically, whenever it's warm, these do really well. All the way through probably November, December, these will do really well for you. What I have noticed, now when you buy the seeds, you get thousands of seeds. No, probably more like 300 to 500 seeds in a pack. But that's still a lot of plants. And I recommend planting this one in succession. What I've found is that harvesting off of these plants, they do get a little bit stressed out and they start getting really scraggly. So think of it like a basil plant. Like when the basil plant's growing, you're kind of cutting the tips off of it. That's how you harvest this. So when you're going into, you're not just picking leaves off of it. So every time you cut a tip off, it will rebranch, and then you can cut those tips off and it'll rebranch, and you can cut those tips off. And eventually the plant just gets exhausted. I believe in a lot of farms, they actually plant these, let them get to a decent size and just cut the whole plant down. It's extremely fast growing. You cut it up, rinse it off, let it dry a little bit, and cook it up just like spinach. The Jamaican callaloo, cooked, it is very hard to tell the difference in flavor between the callaloo and spinach. So wonderful summer plant to grow. You will get a lot out of the amaranths. Some people like them raw. I'm not a huge fan. They do have a stronger flavor. Like, I would put them in a salad. I wouldn't make a salad out of them, but some people absolutely love them. So next is our 2 different downy mildew resistant basils. Folks, if you're having issue with your sweet basils, chances are it's a type of downy mildew. The downy mildew, the strains of downy mildew have completely jumped and gotten stronger and stronger. Very, very hard to control. It's usually like on the cupped leaves, you'll get these little black dusty spots on the underside of the leaves, and the whole plant will just very quickly decline. Most basil that you buy that's not organic is just laced with pesticides. And if you buy organic basil plants that aren't downy mildew resistant, most of them are grown in a hermetically sealed greenhouse with double entry doors with all sterilized clothing. That's their method of controlling the downy mildew. So this is definitely one that you want to get a downy mildew resistant variety for, and you'll do great with it. It's made a huge difference. I was about to give up on sweet basil. African blue basil, we are sold out of it right now, but I think that's one of the trays that I have sitting around here. It's like right over here, but I have like 100 plants right now that we're rooting. So we'll have that one up for sale here soon. Come here. There it is. So we got plenty showing sold out right now. Those will probably be ready in another week or so. That's a sterile variety, has to be grown from cuttings. And it is the boss of the garden. If you want a pollinator plant to attract the bees to your garden, the African blue basil is definitely one to go with. Anybody who's grown it will tell you you need to have it in your garden. Blue curl, that's a native plant that I absolutely love. Kat, a neighbor of mine, gave me some plants and some seeds, and I haven't looked back. Definitely a good one to put in your garden. Has a very unique scent to it. A great pollinator plant. You'll reseed in place and you'll have plenty. You'll never buy it from me again. The Zamboni broccoli, Rob, we've been out of for quite some time. These seeds have proven very hard to get. My grower had a lot of issues with COVID, and but I found another grower that I'm getting more seeds in really soon. So the Zamboni broccoli, Rob, over the summertime is grown mainly for its greens. It will not actually put out the broccoli stems and florets until the days start getting shorter after the end of June. But it has a very mild mustard flavor, wonderful in stir fries. This is another one I would recommend getting seeds of and doing successive plantings, because I think it's best to harvest the entire plants when they're about 8 inches tall. We just cut the whole thing down. I'm not trying to discourage you guys from buying plants from us, but over the summertime, some of these are definitely going to be best to buy seeds of, because you're going to want to put the seeds in a little thicker and harvest a little smaller, plant in succession, and you'll get clobbered financially buying plants. Next on the list is the broccoli, the Brazilian Parasicaba sprouting broccoli. Yes, this broccoli really does grow in Tampa all summer long, will produce wonderful florets for you with great sweet flavor. But this is also another one that after excessive harvesting will kind of peter out. So I recommend maybe throughout the summer 2 to 3 different plantings of it. We're calling this a heat-loving green. It can be grown year-round. We grow it all winter. Yes, the florets get a little bigger in the winter. Over the summertime, you're going to be harvesting more stems and leaves with smaller florets. Basically, your harvest is going to look like a broccoli Rob bouquet when you're going inside. Not too different from other head broccolis after you chop the head off, the successive harvest that you get off of them, the stems and the smaller florets. The new Carota subtropical carrots. So this one here is actually why I decided to do this video. I have it listed as a summer crop because I have grown them all summer. I do have some issues once it gets too hot out. Sorry, Rick asked a question about something I just covered. Was the native that you mentioned called blue curl? Yes. Rick, if you actually look in the description, there's a link to the heat loving greens and things on my website, and you can follow along. You can find it there. It's called the blue curl. So the new Carota subtropical carrots, I've grown them year round. The biggest issue I have with them is when it gets too hot, having the seeds to germinate. So the germination temperature on the seeds is between 55 and 78 degrees soil temperature. So, if our nighttime temperatures are still into the lower 70s and it's getting really hot during the day, a lot of times, if you can keep the sun off of the soil temperature tends to lean more toward nighttime lows than daytime highs. So if you want to plant it more toward the summer, I recommend covering the area up with hay, keeping the sun off of that soil, and then going out and checking on it. And as soon as they germinate, get that hay off of them, let them get full sunshine, and they'll crank it out for you. So we're definitely doing another planting of these. The other kind of downside of these carrots is they take 85 to 100 days. So these are usually my last carrots in the spring, and my first carrots in the fall. But again, that germination temperature is the Achilles heel of the new Carota carrots. So if you can get a couple successive plantings of them to germinate, between now and when it gets too hot, you'll have carrots all summer. you guys are more than welcome to pop in with questions while I'm going through these as well. So the next on the list is the Charred Perpetual Spinach Beet. So this is a Swiss chard. I've had good luck with all of the chards over the summer. That reminds me, let me back up. I should be talking about pest problems. The amaranths, the first thing I talked about, they do have issues with caterpillars. So you got to keep an eye on them because they'll decimate the plants in the blink of an eye. Other than that, they're bulletproof. And that's why this reminded me. The chards, all the Swiss chards have issues with caterpillars this time of year. So you got to keep an eye on them. Most chard, if they kind of bore down and eat the middle of the plant, it's done. It's toast. Except this one. So the Perpetual Spinach Beet, if you've ever grown Swiss chard grows like, out of a V with the growth node right here in the middle where it's producing little leaves. So it's just got one little growth spot. Maybe if your plants get a little bit older, you'll get some side shoot growth, but that's not like the most common thing. This one puts them out between, like, everywhere you rip off a leaf, it puts out more. What that means is that you have the ability to harvest more small leaves off of this plant. So the other issue with growing, yeah, Michael, I'm getting tore up. The other issue with the Swiss chard is as it gets hot over the summertime, they tend to be higher in the oxalic acids, which can be bad for some people. It definitely affects the taste, mostly on the bigger leaves. So by growing the Perpetual Spinach Beet over the summertime, you have more pick at smaller leaves, which are going to contain less of the oxalic acid. So I usually harvest them as baby greens. If you did that to a regular chard plant, you'd kill it because it's just got one set of small leaves. This one, again, it puts them all out from around the bottom. It'll look like a big bush by the time you're done picking at it. Chives, that one's pretty self-explanatory. If you got any questions about chives, and these are real chives, by the way, they're not garlic chives. These things taste like Funyuns. They taste like sour cream and chive potato chips. These have a real chive flavor. They're absolutely delicious. Coreopsis, I have a lot of that. All of the things. That's our Florida state wildflower. I'm not going to go through all those. This basically grows like a wildflower. Wonderful to plant all around your garden. They're also all really good at self-seeding. The Cosmos Bright Lights mix. Everywhere I've ever planted Cosmos, we have never planted Cosmos again. In fact, it ends up in other places. If you want a beautiful plant that takes zero work and almost has flowers on it year round, get yourself some Cosmos. I like the Bright Lights mix because you do get a mix of some of the colors. And I've found some of the other types of Cosmos not to be as heat tolerant and resilient to our summer weather as the Bright Lights mix. Say that 5 times fast. Okay, so the cow pea that I chose to carry, the pink eye purple hull pea, it's just a black eye pea, but it's got purple hulls, so it's really pretty. It tastes just like black eyed peas. There are a zillion different types of cow peas out there. If you've never grown them before, it makes a great cover crop. It makes a good food crop. It makes a good crop for you to grow and then turn under to add nitrogen and nutrients to your soil that wasn't there before. I can't say enough about growing them, something from the cow pea family. We have a couple other selections that are in the same I'm not even going to attempt the Latin name. Well, I will. No, I won't. But anyway, we have some other ones that are vining that Vigna unguiculata. I attempted it. But we have some other things that are the same genus species. All of them attract ladybugs. and can handle the ladybug pressure. What that means, attract ladybugs, attract aphids. They all attract aphids and can handle the aphid pressure. You might lose some plants, you might lose some fruit, the seeds, but for the most part, if you plant enough of this, you'll be fine. Eventually, because you're providing food and you're providing cover, the ladybugs will show up and they will use your garden as a nursery. Once that starts happening, you will never have aphid problems again. So we grow the cowpeas, our Seminole peas, and our long beans basically as long as we can. They just really don't like the middle of the winter time when the days are shorter. So all the way from early spring all the way through late fall, we're growing this stuff and trying to bring aphids to our yard on plants that can handle the pressure, that are going to also provide some cover for the ladybugs to feel comfortable laying their eggs and using your yard as a place of production. Cowpeas are, let's see, hold on, Michael Thorne asked a question, how do you grow cowpeas as a cover crop? Well, you could just put them, like broadcast them out. If you are trying to add a lot of nitrogen to your soil, it is recommended that you turn them under before the beans are formed. You can grow them, fully to fruit and harvest the beans and then turn them under, but you will not get the same nutrient density in the plants as if you actually turn them under before they produce. So if you're only using them as a cover crop, it's a good idea to grow them and then turn them under before the beans form, or make sure you turn the beans under before they fully mature, or you're just going to have a lot of cowpeas popping up all over the place. Oh, yeah. So Michael Thorne, the cowpeas are supposed to not need a trellis. They do vine a little bit, but they're not all crazy like some other stuff. So most cowpeas, not all of them. There's bush varieties and non-bush varieties. Most of them I've encountered are more of a bush variety. So no, you don't need a trellis. Okay. Next. Oh, my favorites. So next is our cucumbers, the Soyonoshiki and the Summer Dance. Yes, these cucumbers really can grow all summer long. I do recommend 2 to 3 successive plantings of them, however, because they get tired out. Keep an eye on caterpillars. They do like to set up on the growth nodes, like where the plant's basically growing from. Just FYI, both of these. By the way, one of the biggest indicators, it's not 100% foolproof, of when I'm searching out crops to be able to do well, look at germination temperatures. So the Summer Dance cucumber germination temperature is 78 to 86 degrees. Yeah, that's soil temperature, 78 to 86 degrees. The Soyonoshiki, I bet, is the same. What that also tells me is they don't like the winter. So that is not a cucumber that I plant in early spring. When I first found these, I was like, oh boy, I have a year-round cucumber. Nope. They do not like the cool weather at all. Yeah, 78 to 86 degrees for the Soyonoshikis. So both of these have high disease resistance. Both of these are heavy producers. And they, what's important to remember about them is that they will produce more female flowers off of their secondary vines and the vines off of those. I'm not going to try and pronounce it because I butchered it today. Terry? No, that's not right. But anyway, the vines off the secondary vines, they're going to produce more female flowers, not on the main vine. So once my cucumber plant reaches the top of my trellis, I top it. I cut the top of it off because you're not getting any or many female flowers on the main, only on the vines coming off and the vines coming off of those. So by cutting the top of the plant off, it pushes all the energy into the side vines where you're going to get more of those female flowers. These are also extremely fast producers. So they will start production between about the 45 to 55 day mark from seed. Okay. And they'll probably produce very happily for you for a good, I'd say 8 to 16 weeks. So I believe the next question I had from Stephanie, hi Stephanie, was how long between successive plantings for cuke? So anytime I'm talking about successive plantings, you kind of figure out about how long you'll get production, how long it will take for production. And if you can plant the same thing in a different spot so that it's producing when this one's declining. So I would say, give me just a second. 50 divided by 7 plus 8. So I would say if you planted the Soya Nishikis now, March, April, May, June, I would plant again in June and then again in September. That's about 3 months apart. And that should get you to where if one set of plants is declining, the other one should just be producing. I think I mathed that out right, but at least you get the idea. Basically, I took the number of days till production, the number of weeks of expected production, add them together, and that's back when you should plant your other one after planting the other one. No, that's not right, is it? It should have been minus 50 days. God, you're making me math right now. It's been a long day. Anyway, your goal is basically once you start ending that 8-week cycle and you know that it's 8 weeks to 16 weeks of production, your other one should be producing. So basically from the day you plant, so wait 8 weeks, not 3 months, 2 months. Wait 8 weeks, then plant again. I don't know why my brain wasn't working. Yeah, so the expected period of time that you'll get good production out of something before it starts having problems, that's how long you wait to plant again. I don't know why it took me a minute to figure that out. All right, so what's next here? Onward and forward. These also, you don't get a whole lot of seeds in a pack because they are expensive. Very, very expensive. Why are they so expensive? Because they are extremely slow to go to seed. So the same thing that makes them so expensive actually works in your favor because you can let the cucumbers get way bigger without them going to seed and ruining the flavor. They get huge. These things are like this big. And they're delicious. Who else has grown these in here? I see some people and I recognize. Daria, I think I'm saying that right. Daria, am I saying that right? Hers are getting annihilated by pickleworms. But am I saying your name right, Daria? Hers are getting annihilated by pickleworms. But how is the plant holding up? My experience with them is even when they're getting hit hard by the pickleworms, the plants are pretty strong and will keep producing more vines. If you need to, follow up with some of liquid nutrients like Compost Plus and get some BT on those plants. That's now just something you do every Tuesday. Just Get some BT. We sell it as Thuricide. It's on the website. It's also at Home Depot. But get yourself some Thuricide, some BT, something with BT in it, and just get on a regular spray regimen. Most of the cucumbers I've ever grown that get annihilated by pickleworms, they don't come back. It's over. These are really strong plants, and a lot of times if you slip up and mess up, you might lose some cucumbers, you might lose some parts of the plant, but if you can get them sprayed, they'll bounce right back. Daria says, very healthy, but the pickleworms are I make flowers. They're oh gosh, you guys are all over the place. Are we talking about summer dance cucumbers? Yes, we're talking about summer dance cucumbers. Soyonoshiki. Rick, get on the website. Soyownishiki. And the other one is Summer Dance. I think the Soyonoshiki has a superior flavor. It is a bumpy, weird-looking cucumber, but they're absolutely delicious. I'm going to move on, guys. We've got a lot of stuff to get through. You guys are always welcome to post more questions in here after the live. Just tag me in it, and I can hop in and answer after the fact. All right, page 1 is done. We have 4 pages. Dotted horse mint, Florida native. That's another great bee balm. It's got a lot of different names. Good pollinator and bee and butterfly attractor for your garden. I really recommend mixing as many flowers and herbs in your garden as possible. That is, good soil, right amount of sun, watering correctly, and having a nice mixed, diverse environment. That's organic pest control 101. Straight up. Okay, so as far as vegetables, next on the list are our summer eggplants. And yes, these really do produce all summer. The Chinese bride, that is a long, thin, white one. Looks like maybe it got spray painted with a little bit of purple or pink. The Shoyo long Japanese eggplant, those are the long purple ones, and the Mizuno Takumi Japanese eggplant, which is a smaller, watery one. If what you do with Black Beauty eggplants is your thing, that's the one you're going to want. The other two are my favorite because of what can be done with them in the kitchen. I think what you can do with them, how soon you can do it, the texture of the eggplant, there's so much more you can do with these eggplants. They're not mushy and watery. You don't have to, cut them up and put salt on them and weep the water out of them. I know this is a terrible description, but if you're an eggplant eater, you'll get what I'm saying. They're tough right out of the gate. So you can slice them down the middle, throw them on the grill. You can slice them in little pieces and put them right in the oven and roast them. You can cut them up and cube them and put them in with pretty much any dish, skin on, and they're absolutely phenomenal. You don't even just treat it like any random vegetable that you're just adding to whatever dish. There isn't just some big dish that you have to cook with it, like eggplant parmesan or baba ganoush, or I feel like the typical eggplant that people buy at the grocery store, it's so limited what you can easily do with it in the kitchen. So not a lot of people eat eggplant because they don't have these other ones. So my two favorite are the Chinese bride eggplant and the Shoyo long. Both are heavy producers. They love the heat. Let's see, like I said before, look at germination temperatures. Germination temperature on the Chinese bride is between 75 and 85 degrees soil temperature. And again, remember, soil temperature, if the sun's not blasting down on it, and it's still deeper soil temperature tends to lean more toward nighttime lows. Okay, so that's 75 to 85 degrees is the germination temperature on the Chinese bride. The other ones are basically the same. So the false rosemary, we're having trouble getting enough of it. We propagate it from cuttings, so hopefully we can get some of that out to you guys soon. I might not have any of it all summer long. I'm thinking what we might do with the last little bit of our genetic material off of our plants is grow more mother plants, because we are having an issue keeping enough of that one in stock for everybody. The Gaillardia Indian blanket flower, which still says Florida native on my website, and I'm keeping it that way. It just got downgraded to a non-Florida native, but I'm not buying it. Whatever. So that's the blanket flower. You see them all along the side of the road. They pretty much can be grown year-round. Yellow Gaillardia, I just love them. That is not a native. Georgia Calumet, same story as with the false rosemary. The goldenrod, the seaside goldenrod, we saved seeds from last season. None of them germinated. So I've got another grower that's sending me some seeds here soon. So we'll have the seeds of that one soon, and probably midsummer we'll have the plants of that for sale. Now, to one of the heavy hitters, jicama. Guys, if you've not grown jicama, if you're watching, pop in if you've tried jicama. If you like to eat jicama, pop in and say, I like jicama or jicama. Let's show everybody how many people like the jicama. So I love it. I've always loved it. 3 summers ago, I decided to try and grow it. Guys, it is like sweet potatoes. Like, it is something you plant in the spring and it grows all summer. You don't think about it. You don't have to do anything to it. It doesn't get any pests. And in the fall, when the days start getting short, you harvest the tubers. It is so easy to grow jicama. I mean, like, my only challenge now is I'm trying to see if I can take the tubers and overwinter them and plant them to get more tubers in the spring. So that's what I'm trying to do with it right now. But from seed, super easy to grow. It is a bean. It grows like a pole bean, so it needs something to climb up. The caveats of the jicama. So number 1, don't let it flower. If it flowers, it can inhibit the size of the roots. Caveat number 2, the entire plant's poisonous, extremely poisonous. The flowers are poisonous, the seeds are poisonous, the plant is poisonous, only the tuber is edible. The good news is, though, you don't have to cook it, you don't have to boil it. There's nothing special you have to do to the tuber. It's edible right out of the ground. You can eat it raw. Hey, Michelle, jicama needs about as much space as a large pole bean. So whatever you would have done, I think I'm putting it at like 12-inch intervals in my gardens, and that seems to be enough room. The other caveat with the jicama is it needs about 150 days. So just like sweet potatoes, like I said before, this is one that you want to plant in a spot in your garden that you don't need the space all summer, and just let it do its thing. If it starts flowering, cut the little flowers off. They are beautiful, though. If you're trying to save seed, they do grow true to seed. You can let some of it flower and have some sacrificial plants. You'll just get smaller tubers off of those plants. I mean, you can let these grow and go and die back in the fall, and then dig them up. So super easy plant to grow. I highly recommend getting your hands on some jicama. Speaking of that, I'm going to go ahead and put this up right now. Y'all, I don't know if you read the description of the video, but I am running a 15% off sale on everything under our heat-loving greens and things. Just use this. Why is this not typing? There we go. Just use this coupon code. I'm going to put it up on for YouTube. I'm going to leave it up for a minute on Facebook. Use that coupon code right there, and it is good until April 3rd at midnight. So this is running through April 3rd. You can use that coupon code right there for anything on our Heat Loving Greens and Things list. 15% off of your entire order, no limit. Get as much as you want for your 15% discount. And again, that's in the product description after I bring it down. What does jicama taste like? Y'all help Stephanie out. What does jicama taste like? I'm going to move on to other stuff. Stephanie, look in the comments and see. Other people will tell you what it tastes like. Scott Smith, jicama water needs. I don't know. I've never had to really water it. Nothing different than what I'm doing in my normal gardens. As far as watering, turning my water off when the daily rains start. Basically, whatever you got going on your vegetable garden right now for watering, seems like that's what works. And then whatever you do in your vegetable garden when the daily rainstorms, that's when I usually turn my water off, or I water once a week. Coriaco, apple, potato. It's pretty close. Yeah. Water chestnut. Yep. That's good. One of my favorites. All right. Get some jicama. You guys want that. All right. Next is our new gold yellow lantana. We have that over here as well as plugs. We're about to start potting it up. This is a sterile variety. I've always loved lantana. I was really upset 15 years ago when I learned that it was invasive, and I was super excited to find out that there were sterile varieties that we can still grow. I love the flowers. I love the colors. Ours is gold. Just to really, it's called the new gold yellow sterile variety that was developed, so it can't be invasive. All right. Lemongrass. That's also sold out because we had some issues with getting our splits to not die. So once we get that figured out, if anybody has any lemongrass they want to cut up in little pieces and donate to Whitwam Organics so we can have something to sell, I'll take it. So next on the list, another one that is pretty unique. I used to not have these on my list. I just basically talked about them more like I talk about kale and collards, like they were winter vegetables, but on the heat tolerant list of the winter vegetables. And a few seasons ago, I decided, what the heck, let's not only try and grow it all summer, but let's try and plant it all summer. So we kept planting the seeds all summer. Midsummer, I mean, like when it's really freaking miserable outside. Oh, I didn't tell you what they are. So our Jericho romaine lettuce from Israel and our Manoa head lettuce from Hawaii. So dead heat in middle of summer, the Jericho romaine germination rate drops to about 30%, but we can still get the seeds to germinate. The Manoa, however, doesn't seem to care. We literally germinated it outside all summer long, nonstop. They do get a little bit bitter and they do bolt some, but this is another one that you want to buy as seeds to grow all summer, and you're going to plant them, I'd say plant the seeds a couple inches apart from each other, and you're going to be harvesting them as mini heads, and we grow them in some shade, in some dappled light all summer long. And we're growing them on our seed tables in very small containers, which tend to heat up a lot more. So if you're growing it in a garden bed, they'll do much better because the soil temperature stays a lot cooler. I recommend mulching the soil with some coastal hay to keep that temperature down of the soil. What are y'all talking about? Jicama? Okay, good. All right, so next on the list, Lima beans. Super easy to grow, y'all. Love the heat. Our king of the garden, Lima beans, is a heavy producer. You don't get a whole lot per pod. That's kind of a pain, but this plant seems to do really well. I'm very happy with it. They can be grown right next to your jicama. So, you know, if you got a trellis where you want a bunch of stuff climbing all over it, you can put your Lima beans in your jicama right next to each other. Next on the list, same category, well, not same plant category, but needs a trellis. It'll climb up. Those are our long beans. So we have the red noodle long bean and the white seeded long bean. So the reason why we have both is because they the white seeded long beans take about 90 to 95 days to begin producing. So that's you know, that's quite a while. I need to change that. On my website, it says 90 to 95 days. On the On the red noodle, that's not true. I got to fix that. They take about 80 days to begin producing, so about 2 weeks in front of the white seeded. I think that the white seeded are a little bit heavier producers. You do run the risk more of kind of not getting all the beans out because they just blend right into the plant, whereas the red noodle are super easy to spot. It's a beautiful plant with beautiful fruit. I like back when I was talking about the cow peas, this is another one that is going to attract the aphids and create a habitat for ladybugs to move into your yard and begin using it as a nursery. So absolutely great plant to have. It's one that you're going to get food from all summer long. If figure out how to cook them. If your first experience with trying them, you didn't like them because you were expecting them to taste like the green beans you buy at the store that you've grown before in your garden, try a different way of cooking them. You know, if you don't like the way they taste raw, you know, try cooking them a different way. If you've always steamed your beans, try sauteing them, try grilling them. If you can figure out how to like these things, it will make your life so much easier and you'll be so much happier with your summer garden because they produce heavy. My first year growing them in my garden out front, I put in 10 plants. And every day I came inside with my hands around them this big. And by the way, the beans are this long. Every day, 2 handfuls of beans. I didn't know what to do with them all. Now I might put in 2, 3, 4 plants. That's all you're going to need. They also freeze really easy. I found that if I was going to cook them, I could just take them raw right off the plant, throw them in the freezer, pull them out 6 months later, chop them up, saute them. They didn't taste much different than when they were fresh from the garden. Obviously, there was a little bit of a flavor degradation, but for the most part, they freeze really easy. They keep really well. You know, anything that you grow in your garden over the summertime that flushes out a lot of stuff, if you can can it, freeze it, ferment it, over the wintertime, if you have that stuff stored, it makes it a lot easier to store your excess. Like you'll have more excess winter vegetables, and that's a really good rotation to get into if you're trying to eat from your yard. So summer is a great time to build up that supply because a lot of these summer crops are very heavy producers. All the amaranth that I mentioned in the beginning, very heavy producer, super easy to freeze and use 6 months later. So that's the best way to have too much from your winter garden is if 3 nights a week you're pulling stuff out of the freezer or off the shelf from your summer garden. Once you can get into that rotation, it becomes a lot easier to be more self-sufficient out of your yard. And like I said, the summer garden is a great place to start that because we have some other heavy producers on this list that I'll get to in a little while. I hear over and over again that people love their summer garden. They just get sick of this stuff. I get that, but figure out how to store it. It will make life completely different when you're trying to figure out how to store all your broccoli in the wintertime. No, Rick. Rick asked if the white seeded are less sweet than the red noodle. No, they're about the same. Didn't like the sweet taste. Holy cow. Let me just get up this. All right, I just put up the discount code onto YouTube for those of you guys who are tuning in through YouTube. Pickles says to dehydrate or food saver bags, whatever it takes. There's so many ways to preserve your food. Lowest hanging fruit for me is seeing what can make it by taking it out of my garden and throwing it in the freezer. And then I take it out a few months later and see what kind of condition it's in. Anything that falls into that category to me is that's a huge winner in my garden. But there's so many other ways to preserve your food. Okay, next on the list are our melons. The giant Florida watermelon. So the giant watermelons are on the list. They take about 90 days to get fruit off of that is viable. This is one that you're going to want to do in 2 different plantings. You need to get your spring ones going now. And then pretty much, I'd say around midsummer, you can put seeds in again for a late, August, September, early fall harvest. The Icebox watermelon, the Heim Kansen Icebox watermelon, that one I grow all summer. And basically what I've learned from that plant is I get about 5 to 8 melons off each plant, and then that's it. It's done. It is an extremely fast producer. It takes about 30 days. These are smaller watermelons. They're like this big. It's an extremely fast producer, like 30 to 40 days after fruit set, and I've had them begin setting fruit 4 weeks after I plant them. So they're extremely fast. Also, the rind on them is very, very thin. When I first started growing them, I grew them like right the same time that I grew other watermelons because I was really worried about growing them during the rainy season because of the thin rind. I just assumed that that would cause them to split more easily. What I found out is it's actually just the opposite. I think it makes them a little more, I don't know, flexible, but I don't have the splitting problem as I do with the other varieties of watermelon. So I'll grow these all summer long. I do have some mold and mildew issues with them during the rain. Make sure they're high and dry. You don't want to be growing them in a low spot. Raised bed's really good. If you can get part of the plant up on a trellis where it can dry out, you'll do a lot better. And I usually, during our rainy season, remove about half the leaves off the plant with scissors just to let everything air out a little bit better. Okay, so our other melons, the Hakachu cantaloupe, the Ichiba honeydew, and the Ginkaku Korean melon. These all 3 can be grown all summer, all spring, all summer, all fall. They do extremely well. They love the heat. Let's look at the germination temperature. 70 to 85 degrees for the Ginkaku is the germination temperature. The Ichiba honeydew, 80 to 85 degrees for the germination temperature. And the Hakachu cantaloupe germination temperature is 80 to 85 degrees. So these are all heat loving. We do have some issues with the pickleworms and caterpillars actually on the fruit, and on the plants. But what I found, again, unlike other cantaloupes and other melons, if your plants get decimated by the worms, even if there's a small amount of the plant left, I've watched them like come back from nothing. These are also very fast producers. The fruits mature. They only take about 50 to 60 days after fruiting. So after fruit set, about 50 to 60 days later, you'll have fruits that you'll be able to harvest. So my 3 melon picks for all summer are the Icebox watermelon. I'm sorry, 4 picks. The Korean melon, which is the Ginkaku, the cantaloupe, and the honeydew. They're also all smaller. Let me talk a little bit about the Ginkaku. That is a football-shaped melon with yellow and white stripes on it. Again, almost no rind. You could like wipe it off and just bite it like an apple. The flavor is somewhere in between an apple, a cantaloupe, and a pear. They're absolutely delicious. It is one of my favorite things to grow in the garden. You can grow it and eat it all summer. This is another one I would recommend planting in succession because once the plant puts out so many fruits, especially in the heat of the summer, it tends to peter out. So having a second planting of it somewhere else or moving on to one of these other summer crops, you'll do fine. But all of these I've planted at different marks and intervals throughout the entire summer. and had great production off of them. That's what put them on this list. Just because something is on this list does not mean that you can plant it in the spring and it will grow all the way through to fall. Okay, you could have that thing between spring and all the way through to fall, but chances are you might need to do multiple successive plantings. And I'm mentioning that on each one that needs that. Next, page 3. 2 more pages to go, guys. All the native milkweeds. Great time to put in seeds right now. I get 5 emails a day right now for people looking for milkweed that is already large plants. Y'all out in the wild, the milkweeds are just now getting flowers on them or just now starting to germinate and starting to grow. Part of the issues with diseases in the monarch butterflies is people having milkweed out of season. They tend to kind of, or they should be following, as the native milkweeds develop, they should be following that. So all these people bringing in milkweeds from Miami or planting tropical milkweeds and not cutting them back over the winter time. If you're going to grow these milkweeds, what basically needs to happen is you got to sacrifice some caterpillars, because when the native ones are starting to die back, you should be cutting back your other stuff. You're never going to find a spot that you don't have caterpillars on them to go out and kill them all. You got to kill some caterpillars. It's for the vitality of the entire monarch population. If they don't leave and they keep coming back to the same plants, there's a virus, the OE virus, that they're spreading around, and you're hurting the entire population of monarchs. You're not helping them by having milkweed in out of season. So all of our native milkweeds right now are about this big. That's why we don't have any for sale. I don't have any for sale for your caterpillars. Your caterpillars should not be eating right now. They should be dead. If there's any butterflies that are still here, they should go the way of Darwin, because they didn't figure out that they need to be down in Mexico right now, or they're on their way back up. But you get my drift. So right now is the time to be planting seeds for native milkweeds. Most of the native milkweeds that I have will come back from a rhizome in the springtime. Doop. Mojito mint, we grow that from cuttings. Absolutely wonderful. Loves the heat. Does well all summer. And of course, you can use it to make mojitos. Can't go wrong there. The Vietnamese mint, one of my favorites. It is absolutely, the scent on it is just amazing. Okra, we have burgundy okra, Clemson spineless okra, and jambalaya okra. Okay. And okra is another one that is a heavy producer. It will give you lots and lots of stuff all summer long, but I really recommend planting it in succession. Every single time that I have had an okra plant in late summer and fall that gets nematodes, it's one that I put in the spring. Rarely, if ever, do I have nematode issues on okra that I plant midsummer for fall. So the way I take care of nematodes, this is on most of my plants, is I will plant one set now, and then like beginning of summer, I'll plant another set somewhere else. And then once the second set starts producing, these get ripped out. And even if the plants are still producing and don't look like they're on decline, when I rip them out, I can see the nematodes. So I might rip one out and then the rest of them cut off at the ground. That lets the roots slowly die, and any nematode populations that have been slowly building up, it's going to leave them hungry and susceptible and still in the same place. And then any predators that live in your soil that are waiting on the curtains, they're going to pounce on them, they're going to eat them, and then that's going to increase your population of things that eat the nematodes. That's your real defense against nematodes. Not solarizing, not marigolds, is planting your stuff in succession, rotating it out very quickly, cut your stuff off at the ground. Let the roots of what was susceptible to nematodes slowly rot in the ground. Those populations are going to slowly move out, because in the roots of that plant that you've had in for way too long, like your fall tomatoes or your spring okra that you want to extend to fall, those roots are all everywhere. There's tons of hiding places for those nematodes. They're in the roots. But there's predators. There's predators around, but they just can't find them all. And so by cutting the plants off at the roots and letting the roots slowly die, it's going to expose those populations to the things that eat the nematodes, and you're going to have population explosions in the things that prey upon the nematodes. That's your best defense against them. Adding organic matter, but rotate your crops, rotate your crops, rotate your crops. Don't leave the same thing in until it dies from nematodes. Do I have bees all over me? I have bees on me. Get off. That's too funny. Okay. Greek oregano and flat leaf parsley, they do really well all summer. I've seen the parsley decline some. Usually I plant it. It's really happy all spring. When it starts not looking so happy, I'll dig it up, put it in a pot, move it into a more shady location, or transplant it somewhere else in my garden. Oregano, it just grows. It's like a ground cover. The partridge pea, that's Florida native. It's really good at attracting wasps. There are a lot of wasps that are extremely helpful in your garden, and they live on nectar, and they will flock to the partridge pea plant. So this is a good one to have in your garden to attract those beneficial insects to help you with your pest control. Pigeon peas. Plant pigeon peas. If you don't know what they taste like, go buy some canned pigeon peas and eat them, or go anywhere in Tampa and get a dish with yellow rice in it. The little peas that are in there, those are pigeon peas. This is an easy plant to grow. It will produce a lot for you. The only caveat is I would treat it like a perennial. So don't put it in your annual vegetable bed, because they can live for 2, 3, 4 years. I've seen them decline even when we don't get freezes after about 3 or 4 years. So you need to plant more, but treat them like you just planted like a small papaya or a peach tree. You don't want to put that right in the middle of your annual bed that you need to turn over on a more regular basis, because if you got a lot of perennials mixed in with your annuals, you can't do that crop rotation and successive planting that I was just talking about. So I usually don't mix that stuff too close together, because your annuals need to be rotated out a lot more often. So get yourself some pigeon peas. If you don't buy them from me, buy them somewhere, get them given to you, but plant some pigeon peas. They do really well. Pentas, we have the giant red old-fashioned pentas. If you have ever used pentas as a landscaping plant, and they're the little ones you buy at the store, and they die from a fungus in a few months, that's because we have hybridized them down to all these neat little colors and dwarfed them down. But it's very similar to like German Shepherds having hip problems. So basically, in hybridizing the pentas, they don't have as much nectar in them, so they really aren't good pollinator attractors, and they have bad fungus issues. These are the giant ones. They get huge. You just cut them back on a fairly regular basis, and they will produce for you year-round. So next on the list, I got a bunch of peppers. I'm not going to get into peppers. Most of y'all know about peppers. They can be grown all summer. Maybe in the middle of the summer, they need to be protected a little bit from the sun, because the actual peppers themselves can get sun scald on the sweet peppers. Hot peppers, I don't see that as much. I'm not a pepper expert, by the way. I'm terrible at peppers. It's like my worst crop. And it's so funny, too, because there's people out there, like, that's all they grow is peppers, and they're so good at it, and they can't grow anything else. I can grow everything but peppers. And the funny part is, a lot of people I know that are really good, experienced gardeners, they have the same problems with peppers. I don't know what it is. And a lot of new, inexperienced gardeners, like, that's the only thing they can grow are peppers. So I don't know. Maybe we just pay too much attention to them. Maybe we need to treat them with disdain and neglect, and they would do better. Korean perilla. Well, I'll talk a little bit about my special peppers. So the Thai bird pepper, that's my favorite one. And heavy producer, very, very hot, good flavor, wonderful to cook with. We also have habaneros. We have a type of jalapeno. We also have big red peppers. We have California Wonder peppers. And then we have our Tenderbell mini peppers. So I do want to mention this just because I think it's so fascinating that nobody knows this. So when you go to the grocery store and you buy green peppers, you don't know, like there aren't green peppers. That's not a type of pepper. When you go to the grocery store and you buy green peppers, you don't know if you were buying red peppers, yellow peppers, purple peppers, orange peppers. They're just early peppers. So all the peppers are ready to be harvested. You know, they're almost full size at about 2 months. And what the farmers will do is they'll send workers out into the field where they might harvest half to 2/3 of the peppers off, the green peppers off the plants. And those go to the grocery store and are sold as green peppers. That's why they're cheaper. And then the remainder of the season takes about another 2 months, twice as long, for the peppers to fully mature and turn color. And by pulling the a lot of the other peppers off the plant and only leaving a limited amount, they do get a little bigger, a little faster, and they do turn color a little bit faster. So they send the workers out into the field and they harvest twice. They harvest a bunch of green peppers, and then they let the remainder of the ones. I'm sure there's some kind of pepper out there that probably is mostly grown for green peppers. I believe California Wonder is one of them. But if you leave all of them on the plant for long enough, they will turn color. So the California Wonder's red pepper, and the big red pepper is also a red pepper. And both can be harvested as green peppers, or you let them mature into red peppers. The tender bell is an extremely high producing plant. The little mini bells. I love this plant. I love this pepper. Produces all summer. I've had them in some gardens for 4 years now. Perilla or Korean shiso, that has a really interesting, distinct flavor. It does produce well all summer long. My favorite thing to do with it is real strong anise flavor. And I like to chop it up, steam it, and mix it with sesame oil and roasted sesame seeds, and I eat it cold like a cold salad. It's delicious. Poho berries or Cape gooseberries. This one loves the heat. It will grow all summer long. Let's see, what's the germination temperature on that? Germination temperature on the Poho gooseberries, 75 to 90 degrees is the germination temperature on those. The only downfall of them is as they're ripening, they ripen in these little baskets like tomatillas. And during our rainy season, those can rot before they ripen all the way. Not all the time. It really just depends on the intervals of our rainstorms. I'd say if it's raining once or twice a week, you're still fine. If we get 4 weeks back to back where it's raining every single day, and they're completely staying wet, you might lose them, but they should produce for you again, and you'll get plenty to full production once we get back into, like, once a week, twice a week, even 3 times a week rain. They should have enough time to dry out, but definitely into fall until it gets too cold for them. So the Poho berry or Cape gooseberry, once you let them ripen all the way, tastes kind of like a sour, pineapple-y, mango-y flavor. They're really good. I love them. Definitely a good one to have in your garden to go out there and just snack on. They do ripen a little bit after you pick them. Roselle, ooh, the heavy hitter. So Jamaican sorrel or Florida cranberry. Guys, if you have no experience with this one, get some in your garden. They begin producing around the end of September through October, all the way through like January, February. And you eat the calyxes, which is basically the flower bud that they're gonna produce their buds. The buds are going to open up and flower, and then the flower is going to get pollinated, and then it's going to drop off, and then the buds close back up and swell up. They can be used as a rhubarb substitute. All you people from up north in our garden groups that keep whining that we don't have rhubarb here, we do. It's called Jamaican sorrel Florida cranberry. It tastes like rhubarb. It can be used as a rhubarb substitute in any dish. It's also used in a traditional Christmas Caribbean drink, and then you can make an amazing cranberry sauce with it for Thanksgiving. I love this plant. You can also eat the leaves. It is not the same as the false roselle or cranberry hibiscus that has the red leaves. This one has green leaves with the red calyxes. Sage, I've had sage in for years. Tropical salvia, another good one to put in your garden. It's just going to keep putting out seeds and moving all around. Good pollinator. Sesame seeds. If you have no experience with sesame seeds, guys, it's a great pollinator plant, has wonderful flowers on it. It's going to bring all the bees to your yard. But you also get sesame seeds. It's super easy to grow. You're not going to get all of the pods off of it. It's going to drop more seeds all around, and you'll get more sesame seed plants. We have all three. We have white, black, and tan. This is another one. Even if you're not going to eat the sesame seeds, if you get it from me and you're growing it, once the pods start drying out, if you're having some issues figuring out how to get the sesame seeds out of the pod, just send me a message and I'll give you my little trick that I think works great. But I'll tell you guys right now, I just pull the pods off. I put them on a big cookie sheet, let them dry all the way out, and then dump the whole thing in a plastic Ziploc bag, and then close it. And when we want sesame seeds, I shake the bag, and then I can get the sesame seeds out from, like, I move the chaff out of the way and get the sesame seeds out from the bottom of the bag. Really, really easy. Sold out of that. So that Malabar spinach, kind of an acquired taste. Some people love it right out of the gate. Some people learn to love it. We do have the red stem Malabar, which is got the red stem, and it puts out a fine, very beautiful plant. Not a real heavy producer. If you want food off your Malabar spinach, get the green large leaf Malabar that we have. That one you can eat the stem tips like asparagus, and then the leaves can be the size of a dinner plate. Makes a wonderful wrap. The Malachi Egyptian spinach. So this is one of the plants that we have that, in my opinion, has the coolest history. It has so much culture and history behind it. It has very unique looking leaves right on where the stem of the leaf is. It has these two little devil horns on it. Very, very unique looking plant. Wonderful flavor. I love eating it raw. But there's traditional dishes that are cooked with it that span all the way from Central to Northern Africa, Southern, Eastern Europe, the Middle East, and Northwestern Asia. Yeah, so that whole area. And in some of the community gardens where I was growing the Egyptian spinach, I had 3 different people over the course of a few years see it growing in the garden and break down and start crying because they still eat it 3 nights a week, and none of them have actually seen the plant growing since the last time they were home. So one of the ladies was from Egypt, a gentleman was from Ethiopia, and another lady was from Israel. And totally separate instances, literally saw the plant growing in our community gardens and broke down and started crying. It's called the food of the pharaohs. There's hieroglyphs over 5,000 years old talking about this plant. I think there's 27 different languages that have words for this plant. And it's like, from my understanding of what they cook with it, like you can go to all these different places or in the same place and go to different houses and it's all different, but you're going to know you're eating the same thing. So it's kind of like if you were traveling around the United States eating barbecue or eating chili, it's all extremely different, but you know you're eating chili or you know you're eating barbecue. So, million different ways to cook it, but they're all the same. So my understanding, it's like, it's what, if the kids come home from college, like that's what mom's cooking. So it's the home cooked meal. It's the traditional home meal. Like, some families stew. You guys get the point though. And a lot of people from those regions, like I said, they still eat it 3-4 nights a week. They just go to these like Middle Eastern or specialty grocery stores and they buy it. And it's like this frozen block of paste that they use to cook their dish. So they get very excited when they see it growing. Definitely a good one to add to your garden. It loves the summer, loves it. New Zealand spinach, another one with a little bit more of a acquired taste. I think it has a little bit more of a mild taste than the Malabar, but it's really good chopped up and sauteed. I like Malabar, and I like the New Zealand spinach. Like if we're cooking chicken or something, I'll just cut it all up and put it around the base of the chicken, let it cook with the chicken. And then it's just kind of, it's also all really good in soups. Next is butternut squash. That's another one extremely, we have a powdery mildew resistant butternut squash. That's usually the disease that wipes them out as we move into the summer months and get into our daily rainstorms. That being said, we also have a powdery mildew resistant zucchini. The desert zucchini, I've literally grown that one year round. Every single day of the year, I'm harvesting the desert zucchini from some of my gardens somewhere. It really is powdery mildew resistant. You get some. If you kind of cut those leaves off, you won't have to treat for the powdery mildew. And so, yeah. And then the ahobak, Michelle, I hope I got that right. Korean squash, heavy producer. It is a vine plant, so it does need some space. But it being a vining plant, if you do start getting vine borers or pickle worms, which is rare on this plant, it can kind of stay in front of it. Calabaza, a lot of people know about that one already. I'm not going to get into that. That's seminal pumpkins are a type of calabaza. There's dozens and dozens of different varieties of calabaza, seminal pumpkins being one of them. Ours is kind of the spaceship looking one with the ribs. The next one on the list is our Tatumi Squash. This is a amazing squash, and it can be eaten at all stages. So you can eat it really, really young like a zucchini. You can eat it kind of mid-stage where it's full size and still green. It's going to taste very similar to like an acorn squash. Or you can let it go all the way, and it's going to taste like a little bit more like a spaghetti squash or like a keep getting these bees all over me. Or like a butternut. It's not as much of a butternut flavor, but you get my point. So you can eat them at I don't know, Michelle, if it's a long A or short A, ahubak or ahubak. Next on the list is our tiat bat put avocado squash. These are grown as a zucchini. So the calabaza, grown for a pumpkin. Tiat bat put, grown for a zucchini, harvested young. Tatame, you can eat at all stages. Now, all three of these, you can eat at all stages. But the calabaza, in my opinion, it's a little bitter. If you eat them young, they're okay. When you eat them mid-stage, they're amazing when you let them go all the way. The tiabat put avocado squash, amazing when you eat them young. Buttery, delicious zucchini flavor. They're medium size. If you let them go all the way to like a pumpkin where the seeds are hard, they're pretty good. They're pretty good. All three of those can be eaten at all three stages, but the calabaza really meant to be a pumpkin. The avocado squash meant to eat young. The tatame, and that one is from Mexico, and it's thousands of years old. Tampa verbena is a Florida native, amazing ground cover. Plant it in a shady spot or some sun spot in your yard, and it will just take over. Beautiful purple flowers. I highly recommend getting that one. Texas tarragon, super easy to grow, wonderful flavor. I love this plant. Thyme. You guys know all about thyme, probably more than me. Never have enough of it. Everglade tomatoes. That is definitely a favorite. We finally are processing some seeds, y'all. We will have seeds available soon, and we'll have more plants. This one will grow in your yard all summer. Sometimes the plants can get knocked back a little bit by fungus if you're just letting it be a big, huge mess. And not thinning them out, which is a pain in the butt to do. But they'll usually either come back from tomatoes that dropped on the ground, or the plant will bounce back after we get through our daily rainstorms. I have seen production drop to like 0 or very, very low, but they're going to produce for you like gangbusters almost any other day out of the year. Turmeric, we are sold out of turmeric, but that's a really easy one to grow. If you're not familiar with it, with growing it, and you're familiar with turmeric, go to the store, buy some organic turmeric, throw it in a pot or two right under the soil level. let it sprout, let it grow all summer. You'll have a huge turmeric harvest in the fall. It's really easy to grow. It does like shade though. So, wow, we got through them all, y'all. 4 pages. I need some water. Well, okay. Let's go back and see if there's any specific questions. I've been yammering on for an hour and 24 minutes. You guys that made it, you get a prize, and your prize is 15% off our heat-loving greens and things. On whitwamorganics.com, the link to the collection is in the description. The coupon code is in the description. That coupon code is good for 15% off anything in the Heat Loving Greens and Things list, and is good until midnight, April 3rd. I don't see any. Wait, I remember there was one. Questions. Questions. I saw one. I bought desert zucchini from you guys, and they went to all female flowers. So weird. Why would it be? You know, usually you have the opposite problem. I don't know why it would produce all female flowers. I always get at least a few male flowers with them. You can pollinate it with anything else that has the male and female flowers, and it'll help it produce fruit. If that helps, Daria. I don't know why they would have only produced. Maybe your soil's too good. Usually people are only getting male flowers from squashes. It means they have poor soil. The plants, if they don't have enough juice to put out female flowers, they'll at least put out male flowers. It takes a lot less energy and effort for them to produce male flowers, and that way they're at least spreading their genetics around. I think that was about it. Yes, Scott, burgundy okra is an absolutely gorgeous plant. I have some customers that we grow it all summer in their yard, and they don't even eat okra. They just pick the okra and throw it on the ground because the plants are just gorgeous. Well, guys, I think that's about it. I think I covered most of your questions. Again, if you're watching this later on, we have a coupon code for Heat Loving Greens and Things. The coupon code is Heat Loving 15, and it's good for all of our Heat Loving Greens and Things collection until April 3rd. So get you guys some of that stuff. Have a good, successful spring and summer garden by planting from the Heat Loving Greens and Things list. Quit messing around. Listen, if you want a garden that takes virtually zero work, skip the spring stuff. Skip the fall stuff completely. Go from winter stuff straight into stuff from my Heat Loving Greens and Things list. I think I have plenty of selections on there, and make that the bulk of your garden. Winter vegetables, leafy greens, broccoli, cabbage, root crops. Do that all winter. Lettuce, spinach when it's cool and cold, and the days are shorter. And then right now, as that stuff peters out, jump straight into the Heat Loving Greens and Things list. And then when that stuff peters out in the fall, go straight back into the winter stuff. The overlapping seasons of spring and fall, you can mess around with that stuff a little bit, but don't put all your eggs in that basket. That's my advice, y'all. Last piece of advice before I go, would be, like, if you have multiple bed areas, do your winter stuff in one bed and do your summer stuff in that same bed. And then your other bed, do your spring stuff and your fall stuff. That's probably going to give you enough of a gap in between each one that you can do a cover crop. You can let it sit. You can mess with organic matter. You know, I think people get really confused when they jump from winter crops into spring crops. Like, jump from your winter crops. Right about now, you should be pulling out lettuce, being done with the spinach. You should be having room if you want to get some summer stuff started early. Your kale and collards are probably still doing great. And you can throw the summer stuff right in with that stuff. Your spring stuff should have been started back in January, February, and March. And that should be in a completely different bed. You're going to grow that stuff till it dies in the summer. Then you're going to get a break when you can put in a cover crop, cover it up, solarize it if you're into that sort of thing. And then wait until fall, plant your fall crop, and grow that until it gets too cold for that stuff, if that's ever, and then you'll get another little break before it's time to plant your spring stuff. It makes your planting season so much simpler. Spring, fall stuff in one bed, winter, summer stuff in another bed. And on that note, I'm going to leave you guys. If you have questions for me, send it to info@whitwamorganics.com, and I will see you guys next week. Thank you so much.